from LEX 18 News, with in-depth coverage of the issues that challenge Kentucky. This is State of the Commonwealth with your host, Conroy DeLuche.
Good Sunday morning and welcome to State of the Commonwealth. I'm Conroy DeLuche. We are getting you ready to help you make your decision in the upcoming election by looking at topics shaping the future of our state. Governor Matt Bevin and Democratic gubernatorial candidate Andy Beshear have gone head-to-head recently about some of Kentucky's biggest issues. Many of those come down to money, and both candidates have ideas for what they would do to bring more cash into the state. LEX 18's Mike Valenti takes a look at where the candidates stand on the issues related to your pocketbook.
Democratic candidate Andy Beshear has made it clear he's ready to go all in to expand gambling opportunities and keep cash in Kentucky.
We already lose $550 million of tax revenue from what Kentuckians bet in our border states in casinos alone.
On his campaign website, Beshear points to a 2011 report from Spectrum Gaming Group that projects in the first year of commercial gambling legalization, fewer than 10 casinos could generate more than $1.7 billion in economic activity. And he pledges to direct 100% of the tax revenue to fund the floundering public pension system.
So yes, it's time for casino gaming. It's time to treat fantasy sports for what they are. It's time for sports betting, and we need to prepare for online poker, which is coming.
But incumbent Governor Matt Bevin is skeptical that sports betting would have much of an impact on the pension system, and has suggested that the debate over expanding gambling be framed as a moral issue.
But these things are not solutions. They're fool's gold is what they are. Would they generate some revenue? Arguably, but this assumes there's no societal cost for these things. The heart of the question is, where then does revenue come from? Revenue comes from the fundamental simple things of getting more people here and paying taxes.
Like many incumbents, Bevin is leaning hard on his record, touting the economic development under his administration, including the more than $22 billion in corporate investment and
55,000 new jobs, lowest unemployment in Kentucky history.
I'm the only one that you'll hear from today in the course of the next 5 weeks that's ever actually created a job in the private sector.
Once a political outsider, Governor Bevin is making the case that he's the only candidate who can level with CEOs and convince them to bring new companies to the Commonwealth.
Companies moving here, not moving away. We can't afford to go back. We'll keep moving forward.
But Beshear says moving forward, there's more work to be done to attract tourists. Recently unveiling a plan that would showcase the state's ties to bourbon and the equine industry and make workforce development a priority in the hospitality industry. He also argues state tourism would benefit from the legalization of casinos. In response, Bevin's campaign manager says the governor has been relentless in promoting Kentucky. For State of the Commonwealth, Mike Valenti, LEX 18 News.
There is a lot that plays into the economic state of Kentucky. Considering that, we have several experts in their fields joining us to discuss where Kentucky is economically now and where we're going in the future. Joining me, we have Aaron Persley, Commissioner at the Kentucky Cabinet for Economic Development, Anna Bowman, Communications Director at the Kentucky Center for Economic Development, Ashley Watts, Senior Vice President of Public Affairs at the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce and soon to be President and CEO of that organization, and Mike Clark, Associate Professor of Economics and Interim Director of the Center for Business and Economic Research at the University of Kentucky. Welcome everybody this morning. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
All right, we're going to start with you, Aaron. Each of you just briefly talk about your expertise in this field.
Okay, so I'm currently the Commissioner for Business Development at the Kentucky Cabinet for Economic Development.
Yes. My
My background includes 30 plus years of international trade and finance experience, mostly in Washington, D.C. and sub-Saharan Africa. I came back home to Kentucky a year and a half ago to be International Affairs Director, and now I am the Commissioner for Business Development with the #1 job of increasing investment in our state and bringing better paying jobs to our state.
Okay, Anna?
The Kentucky Center for Economic Policy is a 501c3 nonprofit, nonpartisan organization. We do research and analysis, education and advocacy around important issues facing the Commonwealth. And we fight for policies that will lift the quality of life for all Kentuckians.
And Ashley.
And I've been with the Kentucky Chamber for 7 years. I was recently announced as the next president and CEO. And the Kentucky Chamber is the state's largest business association where advocacy is really our primary focus. So we want to be businesses' voice at the Capitol, both small and large businesses.
And Mike.
I'm currently the interim director for the Center for Business and Economic Research at UK. And the center basically does economic and policy analysis for a lot of state agencies, a number of different business groups. And generally, we just try to kind of monitor the economy and keep track of what's going.
And first of all, the next question, Anna, I'm going to start off with you. What is the state of Kentucky's economy?
Well, we hear a lot about how Kentucky's economy is very strong, but a question we ask is, who is it strong for, and how are average Kentuckians doing? You know, we know that inequality is as high as it's been since the Great Depression. We know that worker productivity in Kentucky has grown by 40% since 1980, but hourly compensation only by 12%. Median wages have been stuck for about the past 2 decades. And even though we have a low unemployment rate, we still have 20,000 fewer folks employed than we did before the recession if you account for population growth. And you know, instead of doing things like raising the minimum wage and protecting the safety net so that when people fall on hard times, you know, they can get back on their feet, we're doing the opposite. We're letting those wages stagnate, and that affects a lot of people. And we're attacking safety net programs, which mean that, you know, people have an even harder time getting by when things are hard.
And Ashley, what about to you?
I would disagree with my friend Anna a little bit. We think Kentucky's economy is booming. We look at the numbers that Mike's has reported lately that shows that unemployment is the lowest it's ever been. It shows that jobs are growing, wages are growing. We have more investment, I'm sure Aaron can talk about that more in a minute, than we ever had in Kentucky's history. And so you look at the last couple of years, and we think that it is because of pro-growth policies that the administration and the legislature have produced, such as right to work and tax reform, workers' comp legislation, that really have made business investment grow in Kentucky. And you can see the windfall from that. I mean, right now, when we talk to businesses, the number one problem they have in Kentucky is they don't have enough workers. That's frankly a good problem to have, that we have so many investments in Kentucky and so many businesses wanting to come to Kentucky. We need more population here to really fulfill their needs. But we do know the economy is growing over the last couple of years.
And Mike, do your numbers reflect that?
Yes, I think generally, although there are some areas of potential concern, we have been seeing gross domestic product in the state, which is basically the value of the goods and services that we produce, has been increasing. Increasing at a somewhat slower rate than the national economy, but we've been catching up a little bit in terms of some of those percentage changes over time. Employment has been continuing to grow, a little bit slower than it has been maybe in the past, but we are continuing to see employment growth, particularly in the areas of manufacturing, trade, transportation, and utilities.
But it's not all good news.
But it's not all good news. We do see some areas where we're seeing that we're not keeping up with the rest of the nation or maybe some of the surrounding states. For example, some of the professional and business development industries, we seem to be lagging behind. Financial activities, we seem to be lagging a little bit behind in those areas.
And Aaron, that's where you come in.
That's where I come in. I want to paint a broader picture of where we are as a state of Kentucky. So let's imagine that over the past 3+ years of the Bev administration, we have 1,200 new and expanding projects in our state. We have 58,000 new jobs that have been created during this period of time in this administration. And actually, your last story had the numbers incorrect. So we've increased since your last story. So 58,000 new jobs and $23.4 billion in investment in our state. And that's more than any 4-year administration in our state. And we're just getting started. So Kentucky is growing. Of course, there's always going to be things that we have to look on and focus on. It's a constant growth to get better and better. But we're on the right track and we're going the right direction.
Now, we do have a big race coming up, obviously, that could impact numbers one way or the other. Now, let's just stick to policy-wise. Ashley and Anna, how could policy be affected by whoever is elected as governor? Anna, we'll start with you.
Well, one of the big stakes issues we face, pretty soon after the election takes place is that when legislators come back to Frankfort in January, they will start crafting a new biennial budget. And so the governor sets the tone for that by proposing a budget in January. And what we really need is strong leadership on raising revenue by cleaning up tax breaks that we've given to the wealthy and corporations, including in recent years, but for a long time now. And investing those resources, plowing those resources into our communities through our schools, public health departments, There's some agreement around this table around the need to reform our gas tax so that we have more revenue for infrastructure.
And I would agree with Anna. The first task the new governor or Governor Bevin will have is to really look at the budget and help legislators craft that budget. We would encourage, from the business community's perspective, to continue the pro-growth policies that we've seen the last several years. And one of the major tackles they are going to have is the spending in corrections, pensions, Medicaid, all of these spendings that take away money from education, which I think we all value and believe it's the most important task. Anna is right. Infrastructure investment is key. We have made many strides in the last couple of years to move in competitive against our surrounding states, but the one area where we're lagging behind is infrastructure investment, and that really is going to be key to continuing our economic growth.
Now let's take that investment angle and move forward. We do have areas of Kentucky that are doing better than others. Let's go to Eastern Kentucky. That's an economically challenged area and has been for quite some time. What are some things that you guys are focusing on in Frankfort to help out that development?
So of course, Eastern Kentucky is a big concern for the administration and for the Cabinet for Economic Development. You have in Eastern Kentucky a very unique situation where you have an industry like coal that's starting to decline, and some will say even dying. But what you have there is this great workforce. You know, you can't find better workers than coal miners and farmers, right? So it's how do we get companies attracted to that workforce of people in that area of the country? And so we are targeting companies to look at the workforce in Eastern Kentucky. We have job programs that we're putting in the area as well. The Kentucky Work Skills program, which really focuses on 5 areas, which is IT, healthcare, construction, logistics, and advanced manufacturing. We're trying to train people in the areas where they need jobs, where the workers out there, the factories need those kind of skilled workers. And so we're training the workers for the jobs that are there. And Eastern Kentucky, that's a big focus for us, to work on that workforce, to get them in the new jobs that moving forward.
Mike, I want to hear last thoughts from you.
Sure. So again, we do have a great workforce there. I think one of the things that we need to focus on is the training, because sometimes there's a mismatch between the skills that the workers in that area have because they've been trained for certain industries and what skills they need for industries that are likely to grow in the future. So I think efforts to improve those skills and get them more aligned with what the market is interested in will be helpful.
I wish we had more time, but that's it for this discussion. 9 minutes is never long enough. Coming up next, the coal industry in Harlan County that's been making headlines following Black Jewel's bankruptcy filing. We'll take a look at Harlan County coming up next on State of the Commonwealth.
You're watching LEX 18 News, State of the Commonwealth.
When Black Jewel Mining declared bankruptcy in July, mines were closed across the country and hundreds of miners lost their jobs. But when workers in Harlan County heard the coal they mined was loaded onto a train, they took a stand, a 2-month protest that gained global attention. Now the harsh reality. In December 2018, the unemployment rate in Harlan County was just above 6%. In June, the month before the shutdown, 8.8%. In the last numbers released by the Kentucky Center for Statistics, the rate has risen to 13%, the highest in the state. This shutdown affected the entire community.
It's the reason we're here. It's the origin of our existence.
My dad and my brother both were miners.
My dad too. That's what we do here.
In the hills of eastern Kentucky, Harlan County was established 200 years ago.
This is truly one of the most beautiful places in America.
But it was the resource deep in those beautiful mountains that put this place on the map in the early 1900s, King Coal. Towns were built overnight. Homes, schools, hospitals were constructed, and thousands of men went to work underground.
Mining is our bloodline here, and it's how our families make a living. It's how they pay their bills. It's how they raise their kids.
As coal companies boomed and busted over the past half-century, some miners have left Harlan County, but many families have stayed. Will Stanton says that he has been through more mine shutdowns than he can count.
7 or 8, yeah. It's on average about once every 2 years anymore. I mean, that's just part of it.
No pay! No pay!
This summer, Stanton and hundreds of other miners were laid off when the Black Jewel mine in Cumberland shut down. They had money taken from their bank accounts, money they had earned.
You know, when this first happened, we just basically lived day to day trying to figure out what's going on. Once
word spread that Black Jewel wanted to move coal that they had mined, protest began on the tracks outside of Cumberland. One that began with a few miners, including Jeffrey Willig, and it quickly grew into a summer-long campout along train tracks.
I think we took a stand. It's definitely put a spotlight on bad coal operators.
A stand that united an already tight-knit community.
I mean, we come together, we're like a sisterhood now. They've always had their brotherhood, but now we have our sisterhood.
With the support of his wife, Will Stanton is now looking for his next underground job.
I mean, it's what we all know around here. It's what we all love. I know a lot of guys down here went to truck and going back to school and all that, but most of us, we're going to go back to mining. It's what we love.
For Paula Smith,
it's scary. It is. You just don't know.
The future seems more uncertain. Her husband is a veteran of the industry and, like Stanton, wants to return.
It's scary, but you have to take chances in life. You don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. You just hope and pray for the best outcome with it.
King Coal was the reason thousands of families moved to the Tri-City area of Cumberland, Benham, and Lynch 100 years ago. The history is being restored. In Lynch, Portal 31 reopened as an underground mine museum, and the local government has worked with ministries.
We're going to see a lot more efforts like this
to restore old buildings, including Lamp House Cafe, that revolve around the mine.
This was the coffee shop in the 1950s. It served as the restaurant for the coal miners.
Just up the road in Benham, an old company store was transformed into Kentucky Coal Museum, dedicated to the heritage and history of an industry that brought hard workers around the world to Harlan County. Workers like Jeffrey Willig, who moved to the mountains from Baltimore 1 decade ago to dig coal.
Believe it or not, coal mining is, it's a good job, and when you're deep in a mountain like that, it's actually peaceful.
However, he now considers his mining career finished. He's going back to school and wants to learn fiber optics.
I'm just tired of, worrying if I'm going to have a job, depending on a president or depending on, if this operator is a good operator. It's sad because I know it has a very deep history here. I admire the history in coal mining. I admired it a lot.
It's a history that goes beyond the mines and beyond the museums, but in the people who built and stayed in this community, one of resilience and strength. Litigation involving Black Jewel is still ongoing in bankruptcy court. The miners still have not been paid. Moving on, Dan Mosley is serving his second term as judge executive of his beloved home county. When I spoke with him last week, Mosley said he's looking toward an economic future that complements coal.
We're focused on diversifying, truly diversifying, focusing on ways that we can employ people in various sectors through coal, the digital economy, manufacturing, healthcare, whatever, to be able to provide a sustainable job for people for years to come. And that will continue to be our focus as it has been for the last few years. It's been unfortunate, but this type of situation reinforces what we've been saying for the last several years. We have to continue to diversify so that things like this do not happen. We can't put all of our eggs in one basket.
And that one basket for more than 100 years has been coal. Where does coal fit in the next 200 years in Harlan County, or even just the next 5?
Yeah, well, and coal has been the victim of a variety of issues on the national and international level. We've lost coal jobs in Harlan County since 1940. We had a population that was the second highest in the state in 1940, but that has continued to decline every census since 1940. Coal has been the victim of what I would describe as a competitive energy market on the national level, as well as some government overreach. Our vision here is coal and. It can be coal and tech. It can be coal and manufacturing. It can be coal and education, coal and healthcare. But it's coal and you fill in the blank what the and is. We're focused on what other jobs can we create over the course of time that will complement the coal industry. My dad got laid off when I was in the 4th grade from the mines. And I'll never forget him coming home and us knowing that either A, something really bad had happened, whether he got hurt or somebody else had got hurt or he got laid off or whatever. But I recall that day vividly. And I remember what challenges it presented our family financially when that occurred and how people rallied around us to help make sure we had something to eat or Christmas presents or what have you. And he ended up deciding to go into another field to be able to provide for us. And he became an electrician, got certified. He'd worked as an electrician in the mines, but he ended up going on and doing lineman style work for contractors. And he still does that job to this day. People can learn to do other things. And the people in this community that are here to support them in whatever they do. And the way this community has rallied around these people to provide funds for light bills to be paid or food boxes or helping someone get their medicine that they couldn't afford any longer because their checking account was overdrawn has been remarkable. The stories, this could be a book, and it makes you grateful to be able to live in an area that cares so deeply for its people.
Coming up next week on State of the Commonwealth, we're taking an in-depth look at immigration and diversity in Kentucky. You can learn much more about the state of economics on our website, lex18.com. Just look for State of the Commonwealth under the News tab. Thanks for joining us this Sunday morning. Have a great day.